Good day, students. Well, we're now continuing with international business strategy, and the next topic that I'm going to lecture about today is a very important one, which some of you may have come across in your previous BBA studies, is ethics and social responsibility, corporate social responsibility, which has been, in the last few decades, it's been well in the media, quite widespread. So, you know, what are we gonna, what we're gonna look at is, we're gonna separate the two first, because ethics as opposed to social responsibility are quite distinct in the sense that social responsibility, obviously with companies, multinational companies, oil companies, the companies have moved into different markets. You know, when we're talking in the international arena, we're talking about the investments these multinationals give. And if you remember in the last lecture, we talked about, you know, we touched on ethics and how about bribery, when we look at legal factors, bribery and things like this. So it's a real sensitive but absolutely imperative topic to know in your international business strategy module. So first of all, you know, when we look at this slide here, what is ethics? Okay, it's obviously principles is what is right or wrong. We all know what is right and what is wrong and where we shouldn't cross the boundaries. And when we look at the definition, it's used by individuals. Okay, individual ethics, our individual. The way there are morals actually, morals and ethics, as people will say, you know, being a free moral agent, and it's there to guide behaviour. So company policy, the legal framework, the factors, the environment, all guides our behaviour. So you know, there are moral, as you can see here, there are moral dimensions to the information age, and you know, obviously with the advent of technology. It's the multitude of what is ethical and what is not. There's also a lot of grey areas. You know, one example could be, you know, when you look at taxation, tax avoidance is legal, sort of in the grey area and legally set, but tax evasion is something illegal, and a lot of companies have, you know, been accused and obviously convicted of those. So when we look at that, the areas of that has been developed, your information rights and obligations, okay? It's even with all consumers have to know this. Well, you know, when you're buying a new mobile phone, you get all these, most of us don't read all the small print as well. You know, we just don't bother, we just sign it without even, but obviously companies have a duty of care to ensure that all information and the legal requirements, any legal redress, are very well known before buying the purchase. And also property rights, that comes in as well, which can be very debatable as well if it's not properly set in. Then we have accountability and control. We'll talk more about that. Your systems quality, and finally, the quality of life. These are some of the topics that we will cover. And obviously, technology changes so quickly. Even before you know it, you know, within the next days, it could really change. So if you look at the whole concept of it, computing power doubles every 18 months on average. Most organizations are now dependent on information systems for their core competencies as well. So it's absolutely, universities and colleges where you're studying have now all these online portal, the obligations of and the rights of the college are given. You as a student have your rights and obligations as well. And we have to make sure that these are adhered to. And again, data storage, you know about data storage, how now we've got, you can obviously so much trillions and trillions of data is stored online. You know, we have Dropbox, you have OneDrive, you've got so many that's available as well. Okay, so again, declining cost of data storage has been a factor in ethical issues as well. Data mining advances, putting together information gained about an individual, okay, from the many large databases, possibly get a profile of that person. Now, you know, when we have Facebook, when we have LinkedIn, we are already putting our own personal information, our data in the public domain, okay? Our names, what political interests, what songs we like, what football teams we're associated with. Nowadays, companies have so much information on us. And, you know, it is what is called, we are in the information age, okay? It's something that, but consumer rights have to be protected as well. And you will always see in the small print as well, the rights and obligations. But guess what? Companies are still failing to give consumers proper, comprehensive information on that, okay? And we, again, through the internet, you know, we have access to so much information, and again, it's something that we have to make sure what is ethical. You know, the boundaries between what is ethical and what is non-ethical is also very thin as well. So what, you know, we have to be very, very vigilant on all this. So the basic concept of ethics in an information society has, you know, you obviously got to look at the responsibility, okay? So the potential cost, you have to accept that, the duties and obligations for the decisions you make, okay? So that's the first one. What about the accountability? You've got to be accountable. And a feature of systems and social institutions that allow determination of who is responsible, who is accountable for that. And finally here on this slide, liability, which is a feature of political systems that permits individuals to recover damage done by them by responsible individuals or organizations. So again, you could be open to litigations if you're not careful. So companies have to be very much aware of this, and it's something that they are, and it's quite, you know, laid down in. So when we look, there's 5 steps that's been identified in ethical analysis. The first one, identify and describe clearly the facts. Who did what, to whom, where, when, and how. All these questions come about. Okay, whom, where, when, and how. Secondly, define the conflict or dilemma and identify the higher order values involved. Okay, now obviously this could happen as well. And when we look at higher order values, what is our higher order values? We look at freedom, we look at privacy, we look at, you know, protection of property, and obviously the principles of free trade when we looked at that in the first lecture. Final one here on this lecture slide is identify stakeholders, those who have an interest in the outcome, those who have invested time, okay, those who have invested time and resources, and finally, those who have opinions on what is a correct outcome. So ethic, again, you know, there's been such high profile cases as well. A few years back, you can have a look. I've used that as a case study, so please look that in your portal, the Enron case studies. So for years and years, such a successfully big company like Enron in United States, the directors started stifling all this money. Okay, and how did they do it? By collusion as well. So the whole, after that case, it became the whole concept of ethical dilemma. And if you're working in a bank as well, you know, certain jobs will ensure that you actually go through an ethical screening as well. Say you want to get a job in the diplomatic service, okay? You're screened heavily, okay? Say you want to get a job as a doctor or a teacher. In England, you have the DBS, disclosure, okay? Whether you've worked with any vulnerable adults or children as well. The fourth of that is identify the options you can take reasonably, okay? And finally, identify the potential consequences of your opinions, okay? But some of the options that you might have, that you might take, might be the wrong direction you've taken. So it's something very important that companies will look at. Whenever you join a new company, the orientation, they spell it out to you. Oh, you're not allowed to do this. Make sure you don't do this. Obviously, when you, especially now with computers, what you can do and what you can't do as well. And when we look at ethical principles, we should think about, you know, the key factors such as, how do you want to be treated? Okay, how do you want to be treated? So you treat others like this, okay? And if an action's not right for everyone, it is not right for anyone. So why should it be right for, say, a select few? If action is not repeatable, it is not time at any time. It's not right at any time. So, again, you've got to be aware of that. Again, there's so many examples that we can quote through corporate history. And finally, on this slide, take the action that achieves the highest or greatest value. Okay, so these are quite. Anyway, have a look at some of the ones that I've given. Again, if I just look at no free lunch, where if someone has something that is useful for you, it has a value. Okay, it's got to have some kind of value. Assume that the creator will want some kind of compensation. So compensation might be something that you might have to be aware of. Look at the moral dimensions. I've mentioned that. Again, you can have a look at, again, you know what cookies and spamming is. Have a look at through that. And I've given some links here. It might be a good idea for you to look through those as well. Okay? So there's quite a few on information systems, especially when it comes to copyright, trademark, and patents as well. And at the bottom here, I've given a link that you can just go straight from the slide into the website as well, the UK government website on this. Okay, so when we look at accountability, liability and control, one of the key issues that we look at is ethical, social and political, and these are quite important as well. Yeah, so have a look at this, and also obviously, when we look at information systems, it's something that you must be aware. I'm sure in your workplace as well, how much you know, you have to adhere to certain sites, etc. Okay, and obviously we now have portable computers, we have tablets, we can take it anywhere we want. Okay, so you can, and say you're at work and you're using a lot of Facebook time as well. Some organisations clamp down on that, so you're not allowed to sort of browse around Facebook or your LinkedIn profile. They sort of unfair, and obviously WhatsApp as well. Okay, so do look at that, and how obviously you know how vulnerable by the impact of computing could be. You know, we had so many high-profile cases that you can have a look. I've put some cases actually out in the portal, so please look at that. And obviously, computer crime now is so huge. As you can know, hackers now throughout the world has been scammed, and you've got the scammers as well. The real high-profile cases of a number of Indian companies that have been contacting the you know, vulnerable old people in the US, and obviously taking down credit card numbers and bank accounts. Oh my God, there's so much of it on YouTube. You can have a look as well. But again, if you're working in a bank as well, the collusion, that's why they're very, very careful. And obviously there's been some very, very high profile heists as well, where millions and millions of dollars have been sort of siphoned out of banks and into, you know, criminal hands as well. Okay, so I'll let you look through the impact of computer information. There's so much of it now, and as you can see from the next few slides, we have that as well. Again, you know, some of this you might well. I've been very much aware of malicious software that comes as well, but there's sniffing, there's spoofing. They've got all these kind of terminology like sniffing, hacking, jamming, spoofing, all these kind of words. Okay, so do have a look at that. Okay, and obviously management becomes overall responsible for this as well. The accountability, proprietary rights, etc., has to be given as well. So basically, this is all for today. It's quite a short video because again, what I want you to do is go back, have a look at the portal, look at the case studies. Obviously, remember, the lecture notes are just a guide for you. What you need to do is more reading. Have a look at the journals. Have a look at the text as well. The text, you'll find obviously all the chapters in chronological order, and do read through. Okay, students. So see you in the next lecture. Thank you very much. Have a lovely day. Take care. Bye.